After dozens of hours of playtime using the airstrike, I thought I would finally share some of my thoughts on why I like the weapon so much. Note that this isn't a guide on how to use the weapon, since that kind of video would be drenched in what I can only call taking myself too seriously-ness. If you want to play optimally, simply don't use this weapon. As you can maybe tell, I dislike the idea of optimal play. I could go into a whole thing about this, about how you should just enjoy the ride instead of rushing to the goal, but I won't. Just know that I'm not telling you that this is how you should play TF2. These are simply my thoughts on why this weapon is so enjoyable to me. It's deeply personal, and through sharing my views on it, maybe others will come to see the weapon like I do as well. Or maybe not, that's fine too. Our differences are what make humans interesting after all. This also isn't a tutorial or a guide for how to use the airstrike to jump with. I could do that in the future maybe, but that's not what this is. Okay, the intro's long enough now, let's just go. The airstrike isn't good. Far from it, in fact. I think it could hold a cage fight with the Liberty Launcher over being the worst, and yet I absolutely adore it. This is because unlike the Liberty Launcher, which is best used by Faramains new to TF2, the airstrike is best used to play Trolldier with. It pushes the things you can do with the game plan to the limit, while preserving the basic applications of stock jump-in. But more importantly, it's really stylish to get shovel frags with, and all of that will still allow you to play normally if the situation calls for it. It being such a bad weapon is a real part of the appeal. Top fragging, carrying a match, and running around with an obscenely large amount of frags on such an underutilized weapon comes with a certain joy only gotten from using bad unlocks. Think third degree, huntsman, or eviction notice. It's a rocket jumper that can get frags, but it can also do more than the rocket jumper can, which means you can finish off that pesky full HP soldier who just lifted your shovel with 5 HP after you traverse half the map to land it. It sweetens the experience of what would otherwise be another frustrating killbind into the respawn screen, while also being a weapon that you can play normal TF2 with. In other words, it's an incredibly varied weapon which caters to a lot of playstyles, and you get to decide which one you feel like using right now. When playing quote-unquote normally, the weapon is typically strictly worse than stock. At most ranges, the damage thresholds become kind of awkward, and there's an added layer of positioning to using the weapon, in order to try and negate this as much as possible. Unsurprisingly though, once it gets going, it becomes much better. Having more rockets loaded at once is better because more equals better. Yeah, rockets deal damage. Having more of those without needing to reload is good, because reloading is time spent not shooting. Yeah, really complicated. Hey, but wait a second, you're not playing normally, you're using the airstrike. When trying to frag out as much as possible, you want to abuse the weapon's unique quality, the fire rate bonus. The faster fire rate when jumping means you want to be bombing into choke points, onto objectives, or into sentry nests. Generally, any area where there are multiple players in a confined area will do just fine. Or you can jump behind, bullying the snipers, grouping some rockets together to remove the reaction time they would have had, or grab some free heads from a passing eyeliner Vitasar or Bizarre Bargain user. Now we're talking. Aggressively jumping works wonders when random crits exist, or even better in Halloween where you can use the crit pumpkins to control when you get them. Surfing enemy explosives or spells can help bypass the delay you would otherwise have for enabling your fire rate boost. The applications are really endless, especially once you learn about B-Hop. We haven't even begun to touch on my favorite part of the weapon yet, rocket jumping. The fire rate bonus of the airstrike gives you more options as opposed to stock or the rocket jumper. It pushes the user's expression to the limit when it comes to the question of how to traverse the map. On top of being stock, the airstrike can do quick wall shots on large walls, it can pogo using 2 or 3 rockets at a time, it can combo a speed shot into a second rocket, and of course you got your sync jumps. You can sync up to 5 rockets, so oftentimes as few as 3 will already be way overkill. These applications allow the airstrike to overcome map limitations and add greatly to the variety of jumps you can do to traverse any map. Given you're not on the rocket jumper, you'll still have your HP to worry about. It can be fun to play with a quick fix med, granted they know how to air strafe and can somewhat predict the jumps that you'll be doing, but even without the aid of a medic, there's a lot you can do. This of course means that some maps play better or easier and others harder or worse. The lessened self-damage from both the weapon and the gunboats means that you can take as little as 9 damage from a jump, and this can help you live from jumps that would have otherwise killed you were you on stock, or can help you prevent fall damage by shooting rockets that slow down your descent. The faster fire rate can even play into that as well, recovering from jumps that would have otherwise led to a swift demise through falling damage. The weapon really just offers a boatload of variety. On payload maps, some jumps will only be available for a limited amount of time. This sense of conditionality adds another kind of hook to the loadout. It heavily rewards game sense, understanding the map's flow, which is how players move around the map, timing, and map knowledge, raising the skill ceiling by a ton. Not to mention the suspense that you're going to experience when you hit the once in a payload map jump, wondering, is there going to be any players? Will I be able to land the shovel? Or will I be able to land the 7 B-hops needed to get to the sniper if he stood in the choke point? Oh, and that's not even mentioning the fact that you can collect heads in order to get a clip size of 8 rockets, allowing you to traverse the entirety of large maps like Payload Odyssey in one big jump. That sounds like a cool video idea, actually. I wonder if anyone has done that. So why is the airstrike so fun to jump with? Well, it boils down to the skill floor being lower, but the ceiling being higher. But let's take a little look deeper into why that's the case. Note that I'm not talking about jump maps here, because for the sake of jump maps, the weapon is often considered as gimmicky, and very few people have actually bothered making maps for it. I'm talking about the application of rocket jumping within the concept of real, quote-unquote, real TM, quote-unquote, TF2. The airstrike is essentially stock plus for jumping purposes. You can do everything stock can do, and then some. It means that the skill ceiling is naturally higher as there's something more that you can do. Sometimes it means you want to hit a jump as powerfully as possible, other times it means you want to exert a sense of control, where you purposefully do the start of a jump worse so that the spacing works out for the later part of the jump. A great example is this big wall on Badwater between first and second. If you slam the wall shots, you won't manage to get off 3 rockets, and so you won't get quite as far as when you purposefully gimp the start of the jump to get 3 rockets in. Other examples of this could include doing a sync poorly to squeeze through map geometry, and the concept is obviously not limited to just the airstrike, but it's definitely more commonly applied as opposed to stock, given how much easier it is to do syncs to begin with. The skill floor is lower than stock. What do I mean with this? I mean the weapon is more accessible to get into than stock as far as jumping is concerned. Some jumps can be easier to do, whether it be sings, pogos, wall shot. The simple solution of throwing more rockets at the problem tends to work wonders. The double pogo often does what a speed shot could have without the precision of the speed shot being needed, and so it's more forgiving for people who are learning, as you're not punished as much for making mistakes. The weapon is best used to supplement your jumps, still doing jumps without overly relying on the fire rate bonus, and then applying the fire rate bonus in spots where it allows you to do more than another launcher would have. Somewhat finally, I just find the weapon to be more interesting for Trolldier due to the added variety from the eyes of a jumper. There's more jumper main type stuff that you can do, and so it's just a better way of applying a lot of the skill set, whether it be sinking, pogo, speed shot, or wall shots. Triples and quads are genuinely viable given you know how to apply them and you're applying them in a way that makes sense and you're not just killing yourself with them. And on top of that, even knowing how to b-hop has its place, as hitting a b-hop has a relatively large chance of preserving your fire rate bonus. Akin to shovel hops, it only works online as it's essentially caused by the netcode shitting the bed. It applies to water jumps and crouch shots as well, in the sense that it's RNG, which is why speed shots sometimes do and sometimes don't crit with the funny shovel. However, there's workarounds for the latter two. You can purposefully do a bad water sink where the second rocket is delayed, activating the jumping state because you're no longer in the water. In a similar vein, with speed shots, by using a second rocket you can preserve the fire rate boost. It only works because just like how beginning a jump has a delay in giving you the fire rate boost, there is a delay before the game takes it away from you. Meaning that you can fire a second rocket and this will reinstate the jumping flag if the game wanted to take it away from you. Do note that in a lot of times this is just going to give you a ton of speed and it's going to be overkill in a lot of spots. Oftentimes it's better to replace speed shots altogether and just do it 2 times pogo instead. It'll give you a similar amount of speed to the speed shot, but is guaranteed to give you a crit. Wall bugs, edge bugs, player stocks, slides, push triggers can all be used to preserve the jump state, though I don't really tend to go for these because they can be kind of tedious or boring to try to force. Somewhat finally, I'll leave a footnote on how using auto reload can help you fit in extra reloads during a jump. A consistent example would be how you can jump with 5 rockets even though you don't have any heads, by timing a reload properly. If you do a double pogo, it should give you just enough time to fit in the extra reload, and so you can do wall shot, double pogo, reload, double pogo. Gives you 5 rockets for no hits. Somewhat mentioned in passing before, the airstrike when it comes to shooting other players and getting fragged is simply a worse stock. This is why most experienced players wouldn't touch this weapon with a 10-foot pole. The damage on a direct is less and the range of splash is worse. These two factors combine for what is at times a truly painful experience. However, I find that these two factors make it an excellent weapon to use for practice, soldier training wheels if you will. Where the Liberty Launcher is a good training wheels weapon because it makes it easier to land directs, the airstrike makes for a good training wheels weapon because it's more punishing to make mistakes with. Which, for me anyway, means that I'm way more incentivized to actually get good. This does come paired with the downside of being more unforgiving, which can be frustrating, especially when you just double directed the scout at mid-range and he lives with 5 HP. That's what we in the biz call an airstrike moment. Though admittedly, a lot of the airstrike moments are avoidable, and since TF2 matches don't exist in the vacuums of tidy and neat 1v1s where everybody is full HP all the time, then this ends up not even mattering that much. However, after mainly using the airstrike for so long, I've come to the point of feeling dirty whenever I run a real rocket launcher, directing someone for 110 damage, healing myself for 15 HP, and charging my banner? That's just cheap. The really interesting part comes from when you're fighting another explosive class. You can surf rockets, stickies, and even rollers from pipes to activate the fire rate, and then unload on the enemy. This is equal parts satisfying to you as it is painful for your opponent, and unlike the Liberty Launcher or the Direct Hit, which have their own projectile speeds, the airstrike has normal rocket velocity, so it's not going to intrude on your muscle memory from using stock. Stock knowledge, like juggling, still works. So in some sense, it's again just stock plus, though it can also be stock minus if used incorrectly or whenever you get unlucky. Medic's taking 147 from a random crit as just an example of that. The heads mechanic, stolen from the Islander, is a pretty fun snowball mechanic and comes with some interesting quirks. For one, good rocket management when jumping means you can effectively have way more than 8 rockets for jumping, assuming you have max heads. This allows you to cross entire maps with ease, and it creates some insanely unique gardener setups as a result, which really adds to the replay value. Simply put, more rockets means more jumps means more variety, and more variety means more reason for me to want to keep playing. I like my variety. This should be obvious by now. To tie the heads mechanic back into the DM section, as mentioned before, there are some key things to be aware of that may not be immediately obvious. For one, you can have more than 4 rockets loaded. Shocker, I know. This also applies to the Liberty Launcher and its 5 rockets, but the Liberty Launcher has a static amount of rockets that can be in the clip. The airstrike can have a dynamic amount, which is where baiting comes in. A lot of experienced players will count shots, whether it be the Scout Scattergun and its 6 shots or the Rocket Launcher and its 4. A lot of players in a fight will then forget about the fact that the airstrike can have more than 4, or assume you don't have any frags yet. So after you spam them with 4 rockets, and make sure to shoot them like a moron by the way, so that they barely do any damage and they think you're really bad at the game. At this point, the enemy can, should, or will forget about all of their movement and just hold down the W key at you, assuming you're defenseless. This is a crucial mistake and means you can oftentimes get free frags on unsuspecting players, which works even better if you don't have a killstreak kit applied to your weapon. Your glowing eyeballs and the number in the kill feed effectively means that you're playing open hands about the amount of rockets in your clip. That is barring dead ringers, and what I'm about to mention next, it's basically pay to lose. The heads mechanic is essentially just one big copy-pasted function. It's shared between a couple of weapons, not just the airstrike, and though you can obviously treat other airstrike users as a sort of looting pinata, killing someone using any of the next weapons will grant you their collected heads, and so it's the main reason why going off of killstreak counts when counterplaying the increased magazine size is not an entirely consistent strategy. First off, the bizarre bargain. The sniper makes for one of the easiest targets for both the shovel and the launcher after doing a jump. Making sure to take note of what weapon they're on, then you can very easily steal their heads. The sniper collects a head on every headshot, and he doesn't actually need to get a kill, so theoretically, even a sniper that isn't on a killstreak can net you a whole set of 4 heads. Bully them at every shot. Oh, the Vitasaw. When asked what 4 weapons share the heads mechanic, People will often forget about this one, and for good reason, as this melee weapon for the medic sees little to no love nowadays, though I swear some people religiously use it. If you encounter a medic running it, consider feeding them a melee hit or two before you take their life. The medic collects an organ from every melee swing, and so by feeding him melee swings, you essentially feed yourself free heads when you kill him. Use this tip at your own discretion though, since the random crits medics receive on their melee seems to be frequent, to say the least. The Eyelander, the one everybody knows about when it comes to the heads mechanic. A competent Demo Knight can be a real challenge to take down, what with their resistances, extra HP exacerbated by the heads they collect, the fact that the airstrike already does less damage, and the fact that the average Demo Knight player plays in an extremely reserved and cautious way. However, a lot of them have been conditioned to see airstrike soldiers as free heads due to the low average skill level of people running the launcher, which means that they can get a bit greedy at times, which in turn is very exploitable. Another thing is that you're going to get random crits and they won't, and so for this reason, I consider going after a Demo Knight more a question of when am I going to kill him and not as much a question of will I kill him. Okay, so as you've probably noticed by now, the weapon is very versatile, and a big part of the identity comes from how you're rewarded for both knowing how to rocket jump and knowing how to shoot rockets at the enemy gamer. However, we haven't really discussed how these two culminate. Bombing, which is just a way of saying rocket jumping and then shooting rockets while in the air, becomes very satisfying, especially when you've collected a bunch of heads. However, the reduced damage and splash range can make even your best bombs completely useless. It requires precision to get much done, usually having to opt for a single target who becomes the target of the bomb. Even then, this can fail. They might try to dodge the rockets, sometimes accidentally, and then the whole thing might whiff. On the other hand, you might get a random crit, or if you favor consistency, you could get a medic to use the crits on you, though the latter is a bit overkill if you ask me. All you really need is a short flash, or just one random crit in a bundle of rockets coming down. A small shout out to Halloween, where it rains crit pumpkins and they are easily abused with the airstrike. Not to mention you can surf most spells to get the explosive state, and you can rocket jump off of pumpkins, but this is turning into a bit of a tangent and I don't really want to go there, so I'll leave it at that. With less than 20% of a medic's crits charge, you can devastate a whole team of people. It's a bit of an MVM strat, and it's usually done while paired with the parachute, but it's by no means a requirement. These types of jumps are especially good against holds where a lot of players are clumped up in a small space. Sometimes this will be a medic and their heal targets, sometimes it'll be the cart, a control point. Usually it means holds centered around sentry guns and dispensers, or people backing out into a choke. It ties in wonderfully to something else the airstrike is really good at, which is annihilating buildings. By direct, a level 3 goes down in 3 rockets, which is perfect for when you don't have any heads. Of course, it doesn't consider the Wrangler, the Shield, or the Rescue Ranger maybe healing it, but a huge part of the airstrike's identity is what's known as a sync bomb. It's by no means airstrike exclusive tech, but is way more ubiquitous and easy to do on the airstrike than it is with any other launcher. We touched briefly on syncs before, and the sync bomb is very similar. You jump in a way where the rockets you fire will be bundled together. By bundling 3 rockets, you can take out a level 3 without the engineer getting any time to pull out his Wrangler. By bundling 2 rockets, you can drop a medic, giving them no chance to react and pop the Uber. However, not every jump is going to be a sync bomb. Sometimes there is real merit in spreading out the rockets, like when you're bombing into a pyro, or when you're getting crits by a medic. Syncing up the rocket against the pyro makes it easier for them to deny the entire bomb, as opposed to spreading out your rockets, and spreading out your crits rockets can make it basically impossible for your target to escape. Finally, a bit of tech. The reduction in splash only occurs when you're considered jumping. It isn't some kind of attribute connected directly to the rocket, and is instead decided the moment the rocket detonates. This means you can quickly fire some rockets and land before they detonate, giving you the big bundle of rockets paired with the normal splash range. Even more finally, I'll add a footnote about how you can try to predict where your first rocket is going to send someone, and then shoot the second rocket as a preemptive air shot. It is not going to work often, but boy is it satisfying when it does. So, why do I like the weapon so much? It boils down to versatility. Feel like jumping a lot? Play Trolldier. Feel like fragging dudes, or maybe you queued into CP Junction? Play for frags. Is there a big-ass sentry nest? Do both. Nuke the sentry gun and the engineer who owns it. But the choice doesn't have to be depending on the map or the situation. You can let your mood fully guide you on this as well, and it'll usually pan out just fine. Even Dust Bowl has cool setups for jumping with, and playing normal soldier on Upward is totally okay as well. When it comes to shooting dudes, it's more challenging than stock, while also being more rewarding due to the snowball mechanic. For the sake of Trolldier, it enables the playstyle in a way no other weapon can, with an insanely large skill ceiling, not only because of the heads mechanic. The weapon also allows for almost limitless self-expression and creativity, even more so than rocket jumping already does on its own. All of these factors combine to give it the kind of replay value that I find unmatched in most, if not all, other ways of playing TF2. And so with that, it's over. I want to give some quick shout outs and thanks to a few people. Let's start off with Malachus. He's the creator of Jump Lotus. For the obvious reason of helping me enjoy myself as much as I have using this funny unlock. I consider that map the reason why I started to love this thing. I cannot underline just how thankful I am for him to have made that map. Thanks to Tech for giving me tons of feedback on the script and just generally being someone I can dump thoughts on mindlessly. Another thanks goes to Tempest and all of those surrounding it, like Ilprit and his dissertation. And finally, a massive shout outs to mgatf.org. You saw some of the footage before. It's a Market Garden Arena revival. It's a ton of fun, and they have allowed the airstrike, which is really cool, and I have subsequently made a map for it as well. It's been a lot of fun. So go check out the website, mgatf.org. Go play on the servers, join the Discord, check out whenever there's a play session going on. All of that good stuff. It's a great time. And finally, thanks to you for watching this until the end, for leaving a like, commenting about how you made it this far and how you don't have any plans on using the weapons, and that's never going to change. And make sure to share it with anybody who you think might be just as disinterested in the weapon as you. Okay, so I hope you'll learn to love the weapon as much as I do. I realize how unrealistic that is, though. So if you can get only 1% of the enjoyment that I get from it, then I would already consider that a massive win. And with that, it's over.